My older brother got the house. He won the papers, the keys, the lock on the front gate, the cracked blue cabinet in the kitchen, even the rusted toolbox our father kept under the stairs. And still, he lost the only people who would have come if he'd called at 2 a.m. That's the kind of victory nobody brags about. I think about him sometimes when I'm sitting in my car outside the grocery store, engine off, holding a coffee that went cold 20 minutes ago because I was calculating school fees in my head. Then my mother's blood pressure medicine. Then whether I can push my own dentist appointment 1 more month without a tooth deciding the matter for me. At this age, you learn a strange thing. A lot of people are not starving for money. They're starving for one person who still calls them home. My brother had that once. His name was Daniel. He was the oldest, so from the day he turned 12, people spoke to him differently. Neighbors would clap him on the shoulder and say, "You're the man of the house now," even while our father was standing right there, sweating through a white undershirt, fixing the antenna on the roof so we could watch the baseball game without the screen turning to snow. Back then, everything in our house made a sound. The kitchen clock had that dry tick, tick, tick. The window fan hummed like it was tired too. The floor in the hallway complained under every step. And on Sunday mornings, my father would slide a cassette into the old player near the sink. Jim Reeves, sometimes Elvis, sometimes those church songs our mother liked, the ones that made the whole place feel softer for a few minutes. Daniel loved being the oldest, loved the seat at the front, loved being handed the bigger piece of chicken when money was thin, and our mother was pretending she wasn't hungry. Loved the way our father said, "One day, all this will be yours to look after." That sentence did something to him. Maybe our father meant responsibility. Daniel heard ownership. There's a difference. A big one. We didn't see it clearly when we were young. When you're kids, you think your family will always snap back into place after a fight. Like one of those old seatbelts in the station wagon. You pull it hard, it locks. You let go, it slides back like nothing happened. Families don't always do that. My father got sick slowly. Not movie sick, not one dramatic speech and one final sunset. I mean the real kind. Prescription bottles gathering by the microwave, receipts folded in his shirt pocket, that smell of hospital hand sanitizer clinging to his coat. The cough in the middle of the night that traveled through the walls and sat on everybody's chest till morning. By then, Daniel was already acting like manager of the family. He handled paperwork, talked over the doctors, corrected my mother in front of strangers, used phrases like, "for everyone's best interest," which usually means one person has already made up his mind. I was the middle one. My younger sister Lena lived nearby with 2 little boys and a husband who drove trucks across 3 states, and was home just enough to leave dirty boots by the door and disappear again. I had a daughter in braces and a son who thought cereal counted as dinner if you poured enough of it in a bowl. Life was moving fast and stupid, the way it does in your 40s. You spend all day answering people, your boss, your kids, your parents, your spouse, the school nurse, the mechanic, the pharmacist. By 9 at night, there's half a sandwich on the passenger seat and a missed call from somebody you love. That was the season we were in when my father died. Cold March, hard rain, the kind that makes the cemetery grass look almost black. At the funeral, Daniel cried hard, real hard, one hand over his face, shoulders shaking. I believed him. That's the ugly part. I believed the grief would make him tender. Instead, it sharpened him. 3 weeks later, he called us to the house. Same house we grew up in. Same porch swing with one chain always squeaking. Same kitchen wallpaper with the faded yellow pears. The same cookie tin on top of the refrigerator where my mother used to keep spare keys and expired coupons and birthday candles broken in half. Only now, Daniel stood in the dining room with a file folder. A file folder. Can you imagine reducing 40 years of birthdays, arguments, burnt turkeys, report cards, flu seasons, Christmas mornings, scraped knees, and overdue bills to a file folder? He cleared his throat and said Dad had updated the will. Said the house and most of the property were being left to him because he was the one who stayed involved. That phrase landed like a slap. Stayed involved. As if Lena hadn't driven Mom to appointments with 2 kids fighting in the back seat. As if I hadn't been fixing the gutters, changing light bulbs, hauling out trash, replacing the water heater, mowing that yard in the August heat with sweat running down my back like someone had poured a glass of water inside my shirt. But Daniel had documents, copies, signatures, dates. He spread them on the table where we used to do homework. My mother sat there with both hands in her lap, looking small. Not weak, just small. Like grief had shrunk her an inch. Lena asked one quiet question. Did Dad really want this? Or did you want this? Daniel snapped so fast it shocked even him. He said people who do less always complain the loudest. Said some of us only showed up for sentimental reasons. Said somebody had to make hard decisions. Hard decisions. He loved that phrase too. Nobody threw anything. Nobody slapped anybody. That would have almost been easier. It was worse than that. It was chairs scraping back, my mother whispering, "Please." Lena crying without sound, me standing there with my jaw locked so tight I could hear my own molars grind. You know what I remember most? Not the papers, not his voice. It was the percolator on the stove. Somebody had made coffee and forgotten it. That little metal lid kept rattling. Just a soft clink, clink, clink. Like the house itself was nervous. Daniel got the house. Legally, maybe he was right. Maybe he had every stamp and signature lined up like soldiers. But after that day, family dinner stopped. Birthdays got awkward. Thanksgiving turned into scheduling warfare. My mother started splitting holidays like a divorced parent. 2 hours here, 3 hours there. A pie in the back seat. A cardigan folded over her purse. Trying to keep peace between her own children, like she was smuggling fragile glass across a war zone. Lena stopped going over entirely. Said she couldn't let her boys watch people smile with their teeth and hate each other with their eyes. I understood that. Still went sometimes for Mom. Daniel changed the locks that summer. Didn't announce it. I found out because my key wouldn't turn. I stood there on the porch with a bag of groceries for Mom. Peaches, soup, that cinnamon bread she liked. I kept trying the key like maybe I was suddenly too stupid to use a door. Then Daniel opened it from inside. He looked embarrassed for half a second, then annoyed. That's when I knew the house owned him now, not the other way around. Mom moved in with Lena 2 years later after she slipped in the bathroom. Daniel said it made sense. Said the house wasn't set up for elder care. Funny phrase. That house held every stage of our lives. Chicken pox, broken hearts, science fair posters, a sewing machine, my father's boots drying by the heater. But apparently old age was asking too much. After Mom left, Daniel stayed there alone. At first he looked successful. New truck, new fence, kitchen remodeled, sold the old dining set. Threw out Dad's recliner because it smelled old. That chair had a dent shaped exactly like our father. He got rid of it in one afternoon. Some things shouldn't go to the curb that easy. Years passed. Not a dramatic number, just enough. Enough for Lena's boys to become taller than their mother. Enough for my daughter to get married. Enough for my son to start sounding like me on the phone, tired and rushed and apologizing to everybody. Daniel came to the wedding, sat in the back, brought an expensive gift nobody remembered, and wore a suit that fit a little too loose. That was the first time I noticed how old he'd gotten. Not old in years, old in the face. Loneliness does that. It hollows a man out in places food can't reach. He tried to joke with Lena. She nodded. He asked about the boys. They answered politely. That was all. Polite is a cold room, let me tell you. A few months later, he called me. First time in almost a year. I was in a parking lot outside my son's school, eating fries out of the bag because I hadn't had lunch, and because at our age, sometimes that counts as self-care. He sounded strange. Not drunk, not sick exactly, just untethered. Asked if I wanted to stop by. Said he'd found some old tapes in the garage. I went. The house looked better and felt worse. Fresh paint, quiet rooms, no smell of food, no clutter, no life. He had the box on the table. Cassettes. Christmas '89. Lena piano recital. Dad birthday. Lake trip. He picked one up and stared at it like it might explain him to himself. Then he said, "I thought if I kept the house, I was keeping them." That was the most honest sentence he ever spoke. We sat there listening to the tape hiss for a while before the voices came in. My mother laughing in the background. My father saying, "Don't put your finger over the microphone." Kids running, a plate dropping somewhere, the dog barking. Daniel's younger voice, loud as ever, asking if anybody had seen his glove. He started crying before the tape ended. Not the funeral crying, not public crying. This was smaller, harder to watch. The kind that leaks out when a man finally runs out of arguments. He told me he thought Dad respected strength, thought being oldest meant taking control, thought if he gave an inch, nobody would leave him anything. Then he laughed once, a dry, ugly little laugh, said, "Turns out I kept the wood and drywall, and lost the people who made it a house." I didn't rescue him with some beautiful line. Life doesn't hand out those moments as often as movies do. I just sat there, looked at the old wallpaper he hadn't changed in the hallway, listened to the cassette click over, thought about how strange it is that a man can spend years defending what he owns, then wake up and realize he's been guarding an empty building. Daniel tried after that. He really did. Called Lena, sent birthday cards to her boys, dropped off tomatoes from his garden, asked me if we could all have dinner sometime. But there are things that do not break clean. They tear. And when you try to stitch them up later, the seam always shows. Lena forgave him in the way tired adults do. No speeches, no reunion music, just less anger. A little room in the conversation, an extra chair at Thanksgiving. He was grateful for crumbs because he finally understood the meal he'd thrown away. Last winter he had a mild stroke. He's alive. Slower now. One side of his mouth doesn't quite obey him. I visited him in rehab. The room was beige and overwarm. TV on mute. A plastic cup of water with a bent straw. His reading glasses folded on a Bible he probably hadn't opened. Snow was collecting outside the window. He looked at me a long time and said, "I thought money made a person safe." I told him safety is hearing your sister argue with the nurse because the blanket isn't warm enough. Safety is your nephew bringing the wrong charger, but staying anyway. Safety is somebody knowing how you take your coffee without asking. He nodded like it hurt. Maybe it did. These days the old house is up for sale. Big maple tree out front. New gutters, fresh siding, pretty listing photos. No sign of the life that happened there. No sound of cassettes. No squeak in the porch swing. No father in a white undershirt fixing the antenna. No mother wiping her hands on a dish towel. No 3 kids who once believed home was a thing nobody could take apart. That part's gone. And when I pass that street, I always think the same thing. Some people spend half their life trying to get more. Then one day they sit alone in a clean, quiet house, and would trade all of it just to hear one familiar voice in the kitchen again.